Yo guys, so yesterday I was onboarding a new client and we were chatting through the dopamine reset. Basically, we were looking at what habits he wants to get rid of, what habits he wants to implement and bring into his life, and the aligned goals that he set over the next 4 weeks and the motivations to get there. Now, he was talking about how he's quite good at negative thinking and berating himself, just thinking constant negative thoughts. And it really resonated with me because that's exactly how I used to be and exactly how sometimes I can get, and I know other men can get, when they're not aligned to the man that they want to be. Now, he asked a good question. Do I focus on positive thinking, or do I just focus on the habits that I'm trying to implement and get better at? And so it was a very interesting question because there's no sort of black or white answer. It's quite grey and it very much depends. But one thing that I think from my own experience, and I was telling him, is that over the last sort of 7 years, as I have been in this sort of self-development arena, like my own self-development, I've noticed after a while that all of these things that we get told to do are great and are truthful. We don't need to listen to our thoughts, and we, can think more positively. We can have more positive emotions. But ultimately, like a lot of the time, we don't get any kind of structure on how to do that. And a lot of the time, you then start to feel frustrated and guilty for having these negative thoughts, having these negative emotions, because you're starting to learn more about the way that we can act and the way that we're supposed to be. And ultimately, we start to feel guilty. And this can be for two reasons. Number one, because we're trying to grow and advance and we don't want to be that way anymore. And number two, because generally what we have in life is really good. We have a good job, we have a good family, an amazing family probably, good friends, potentially a good social life, maybe not. I do tend to find that men isolate themselves quite often as when they start to have kids and that. And potentially a decent enough community around us. And so what can happen is we get these feelings of guilt and frustration, and that leads to the bad habits generally. So we want to feel better in ourselves, so we go for dopamine hits, like eating junk food, potentially like biscuits or chocolate or whatever it is your vice during the day. We might go towards procrastinating on things that we know we should get done, and ultimately that can be a fear-based thing because we know we have to kind of put ourselves out there and almost could set ourselves up for failure. Again, a lot of procrastination around the goals that you want to hit, the man that you want to become. We procrastinate it because it's hard, it's difficult, it's uncomfortable, it's unknown as well. And so we procrastinate because we're putting ourselves out there and we might not get there, right? We might not hit it. And there's tons of things that we can do and self-sabotage because of these negative thoughts, and we sort of almost there's a disconnect between the life we're living, our thoughts, and the way we want to live. And so what we need to do is change that. But really, the best way to do it is implementing new habits and taking it step by step and focusing on those new habits, because ultimately, the reason those negative thoughts happen is for those two reasons I said before, right? It's probably because we're in a bad sort of thought pattern, and also because our life isn't where we want it to be. We might be feeling lost in life. We might feel like we have no control over life. We might have no energy, no focus. And so ultimately, all of these things bring about each other, right? And so what we need to do is when we start focusing just on the habits, instead of like everything around that, we need to set goals. We need to have a big vision. But we then need to bring all these top level stuff down into sort of the inverted pyramid where we're just going to focus on a couple of things. So when we focus on those, we start to align our lives with those goals, with the vision, with the mission, and we end up becoming this man. It takes time, right? I'm not going to lie to you. And ultimately, this is one of the reasons why men end up going around in circles, because they're too impatient. They can't just see that over time, doing consistent action will get them to where they want to be. Instead, what they see is, I've done 2 weeks of this and I don't see any difference, right? You probably will after 2 weeks, but major differences happen over a long period of time. If you think about, I've just said 7 years, that's led to major difference in me, but it's been 7 years of consistent action and realizations and awareness. And so one of the big things here is understand the small steps and actions that we can take and the good habits we can implement. That can be anything. It could be boundaries on your phone. It could be exercise. It could be getting your steps in, eating better. It could be setting focus periods for the day. Whatever it is, right? We can set good action steps. And if we focus on them, we're going to start aligning our life to who we want to be, because we're going to be more present for our families and our kids. We're going to have more energy for our families and our kids and for our work. We're going to go after the promotion or starting the business or whatever it is that we've been too afraid to do, because we're starting to feel better in ourselves and we're aligning the actions. Then what happens is our thought patterns are naturally going to start aligning to this, because we're feeling better in ourselves. When we're not feeling good, our thought patterns are easily run away from ourselves. And look, if we could stop thoughts, then we would just be able to tell them to stop. But ultimately we can't. And I know not everyone thinks in terms of words. Some people think in images. But it's the same thing, right? Whatever it is, we're ultimately thinking about or experiencing negative images or thoughts. And we want to shift that, because we want to be a more positive person. But that comes with taking positive action. And step by step, that will change over time. So the most important takeaway here is, yes, you probably can put structures and stuff in place to overcome those thoughts. Maybe it's journaling, maybe it's breath work, interrupting those patterns. But the most important thing is start living aligned to the man that you want to be. That is really important, to become the advancing man. Otherwise, if we stay stuck in these bad habits and negative thought patterns, we're going to end up in the comfort man. We're going to end up too comfortable, right? And this is what this client was saying. This new client who's joined the dopamine reset, he was saying that he's ended up being the comfort man. The man who has a good amount of things, but has stayed comfortable, stayed in the same job for 20 years, nearly 20 years. That's a bit of an exaggeration. No, nearly 20 years. Who stayed in the same job for 20 years when other people who started after him had got promotions, just because he wasn't sure what he wanted. Has a great family, but doesn't serve them properly as he could, because he's distracted by his phone or jobs that need doing around the house. And he's ultimately not being the man that he knows he can be. He's eating junk food throughout the day because he's tired, so he wants to make himself have more energy and feel better. And all of these things are the comfort man. The man who has ultimately tried to just stay comfortable his whole entire life doesn't mean necessarily that's in every single area. You might have got those promotions and gone well in your job, but sometimes that leads to more money, more comfort, nice things, more comfort. And we're not in any discomfort to allow ourselves to grow as a man. So implementing these new habits is going to align ourselves with that vision of the man that we want to become. It's going to make us hit our goals in 2025 and ultimately have more positive thoughts, and be a more positive person to be around, and be more present for the people that we love the most.